Hello friends, welcome into the Cowboys Report presented by the My TV Choice app. Get rid of commercials during March Madness by downloading the app at mytvchoice.com. Let's talk about Cowboys Free Agency. They have still about $13 million in cap space, but that doesn't include the roughly $5 million you want in season for your emergency fund, and not the $4 million or so it's projected to cost the Cowboys to sign their draft picks. So in reality, you're a little close to being maxed on that end, but you can always find a way to clear more space for any individual player if you really, really want them. Now, we're going to look at 10 players the Cowboys could still sign in free agency, but I don't think they're going to try and drastically change the way they're set up right now when it comes to their cap space. So, money is a big factor here, but I did pick some of the more notable names still out there. We'll start with two we know the Cowboys have interest in. First up, Eric Berry. The Cowboys brought him in for a visit, then they signed George Iloka instead. Now, medical is the big issue here. He's played in 3 games over the past 2 years. That's nothing. At the same time, George Iloka signed for basically the vet minimum, which A, fantastic deal by the Cowboys, B, means you can still go out and get some safety help if you want it. Now, if Eric Berry is willing to take a heavily incentivized deal, I'm intrigued. I'm talking something like, you offer him a 1-year deal, let's say $1 million base or $1 million guarantees, 2 to 3 maybe in base salary, if that, and then a bunch of money to make via incentives so that he can make a lot of money if he plays all 16 games, which guess what? You'd be happy to pay that if Berry does play all 16 games. But in general, I think the Cowboys are feeling relatively good here about safety with Xavier Woods, Jeff Heath, George Iloka. Those 3 guys, they're in good shape there in terms of overall depth, plus Kevon Frazier, and you can still go draft somebody early in the draft in round 2 or round 3. But do you want the Cowboys to still sign Eric Berry? Type Y for yes or type N for no. Let me know in the comments section. I am still open. Of course, it's at the right price, but I do wonder how the medical actually came back for Berry and the Cowboys. Speaking of the medical, that's the big red flag for Malik McDowell. He very much fits what I call the Will McClay special. Former high-round draft pick, didn't pan out in his first stop or 2, or heck, even 3 stops sometimes. Cowboys had a good visit with McDowell. Here's the problem. Although he says he's been cleared and his agent says he's been cleared, that does not mean that an NFL team is going to clear McDowell. Seattle never did it, and the Dallas Cowboys might not do it. That was a really bad ATV accident. So if he's cleared to play and cleared to return, I'm intrigued. Let's give it a shot and see what happens. At the same time, I'm not actually sure McDowell is going to be medically cleared by any NFL team, which is unfortunate for him, but that is something to monitor for the Cowboys. Now, I don't think they're totally done on the defensive line, be it in free agency or more likely the NFL draft. Yeah, on defensive tackle, you've got Woods and Ross and Covington and Collins. I'm looking for one more guy out there. And the good news are there are some still intriguing defensive line options, even beyond Malik McDowell. Now, we'll get to those here in a minute, but first, today's show is brought to you guys by the My TV Choice app. Go download it now at mytvchoice.com. Instead of commercials during March Madness, why don't you get some chat sports content on there? From me, look at that. You can be watching the game, and then during the commercial, I come on screen and either grace or annoy your presence, depending on how you like to stare at me beyond just listening to the voice and the Cowboy stuff. Either way, mytvchoice.com. Go download today on Android or iPhone. Back to some defensive linemen there. Ndamukong Suh, the biggest name left out there. I think even more so than Eric Berry, given the injury problems for Berry. He'd be a huge boost on the interior for the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, there's your second best defensive lineman, I'd say by a pretty significant margin alongside DeMarcus Lawrence. But is the price tag an issue? I kind of think that it is. Now, Suh was much better down the stretch. Maybe you can interest him in another 1-year deal. I think it'd have to be under $10 million at least. I don't know what his market currently looks like. It's been a little bit stagnant so far. So from that perspective, I'm intrigued, but I just don't know if the money's going to work out. So let me know what you guys think. What is the most you guys would pay Suh? Let's assume it's a 1-year deal. What are you giving him? I assume it's well under 10 because the Cowboys weren't going to do that, heck, even maybe for Earl Thomas. They're not going to do it for Suh. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. One name I've seen many of you guys mention, and I agree, Timmy Jernigan. Now, his 2018 was not very good. He was banged up, hardly made an impact until the postseason. Even then, wasn't the same guy we've seen in the past. But I think it'd be a smart pickup. A cheap 1-year prove-it deal, and then he leaves and say, cool, thanks, Timmy. We'll still go draft somebody in the early to mid-rounds at defensive tackle. The numbers, again, were not great in 2018, but I think in terms of a rotation, Malik Collins, Antoine Woods, Christian Covington, you can still work in Tyrone Crawford some too. That's a pretty good interior pass rush there if you're able to retain Timmy, or if you're able to sign Jernigan, which I think is maybe a bit of a long shot right now. Let's move to defensive end then. Nick Perry, who was cut by the Packers this offseason, meaning he would not impact the comp pick formula. Now, nothing is set in stone quite yet, but I believe because George Iloka signed to the veteran minimum deal, the Cowboys for now still have a 5th-round pick, which could drop or raise depending on what else happens in free agency. A 5th-round pick coming for Cole Beasley's loss, which you can still sign Nick Perry and not worry about that. Now, if Robert Quinn does not come to the Cowboys, I think Nick Perry could be an option. Knowing Nick Perry, I could see him ending up in Seattle because there's the Green Bay-Seattle connection there. But if the Cowboys still looking for more of a veteran on the edge, I think Nick Perry makes quite a bit of sense. And you can still keep Kerry Hyder. You can still keep Dorrance Armstrong, Crawford, and Lawrence. Maybe you don't draft somebody in this scenario. Maybe you still do because the way Hyder's deal is structured, he's not guaranteed to make the roster this year, although even though I think he does, might be more of a Coney Ely type move. So we're through 5 players. Here they were in case you missed them. Eric Berry, Malik McDowell, Ndamukong Suh, Timmy Jernigan, and Nick Perry. Now I mentioned how Kerry Hyder could be a Coney Ely type signing for the Cowboys. So could Deion Jordan. What I mean by that is you sign a player in free agency, but you structure the deal where he is not guaranteed a roster spot. So you could bring in Deion Jordan for limited guaranteed money because the production has not been that great in the NFL, but he's a Will McClay special. Former number 3 overall pick out of Oregon, had some off-the-field troubles, which he seems to have moved past since then. Maybe he makes the roster, maybe he doesn't. It gives you another option, though, on the edge, even if just for injuries in training camp. A cheap guy like Deion Jordan could make some sense for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, today's show is brought to you by BetDSI. Go over to chatsports.com/bet and use that promo code Cowboys120. All right, if you want to bet on March Madness, BetDSI is the place to do it. And that promo code, by the way, gets you extra bonus money. So if you put down $50, they're going to give you $64 free to bet with. You guys will not find a better betting deal out there than the one on BetDSI. chatsports.com/bet. Let's move then to some running backs. With the way things are structured right now, the Cowboys need to get some help. They're really, really thin at the moment overall when it comes to the running back position. Now, Jay Ajayi, I think, fits what Dallas should do and what I think they prefer to do. They want someone who's a little bit more well-rounded. They don't want just a scat back. They don't want just a big burly guy. I think Jay Ajayi can fit that more well-rounded role, even maybe he's not the best pass catcher out there. But you bring him in, he becomes your number 2. And God forbid something happens to Ezekiel Elliott injury-wise. Jay Ajayi's shown he can handle the workload. Now, there are injury concerns there, and on top of that, I think Ajayi and really every free agent back, I don't know how intrigued they are by coming to Dallas. Because how are they going to get the ball? Zeke's going to get most of those touches, so I am intrigued. We know the Cowboys love Boise State players. I venture to say many of you are as well, but it takes 2 to sign a contract. I'm not so sure Jay Ajayi feels the same way. That could also be true for someone like TJ Yeldon. I think he'd be a really good backup behind Zeke Elliott, offers more in the passing game than, say, Jay Ajayi does, and Yeldon from Jacksonville has shown he can at least be serviceable. Now, he was certainly overdrafted by the Jacksonville Jags out of Alabama, but Cowboys don't have to worry about that. He offers plenty in the passing game. That's a nice number 2 complimentary back for Yeldon. And either way, you bring him in, you can still draft somebody in the middle round. So if you're looking for a running back who can be a little bit more of a not quite full-on featured, but could handle a feature-esque workload for a couple of games, I think Yeldon fits that mold. Now, in terms of players who don't necessarily fit that, in terms of these two guys, we'll get to those in a minute here. But first, which running back would you rather sign between the two guys we just mentioned? A for Jay Ajayi. I know that sentence made absolutely no sense. T for TJ Yeldon. Let me know in the comment section. I got ahead. That's my mistake, because there is one more back I want to discuss. That's Ty Montgomery. And he fits more of that stereotypical change of pace back. Producer Brett, stop laughing at me. After all, Montgomery was a wide receiver at the beginning of his career. He offers return value. He's not going to be a number one back. He might not even be a top 50 back in the NFL. Certainly wasn't last year for the Packers or the Ravens. But if you want somebody to be that number 3 guy that can help on special teams, and if Tavon Austin gets hurt, you can at least put Ty Montgomery back there on returns, right? That gives you a little bit more flexibility, and that type of player, when you're building the bottom of the roster, I think carries value. And by the way, Ty Montgomery would probably be super, super cheap in free agency. One more name that I want to throw out there. I don't know how you guys are going to feel about it. How about you bring back Morris Claiborne? Just throwing it out there. He fits Chris Richard's scheme. You can never have enough cornerback depth. There hasn't been all that much interest in Morris Claiborne at the moment. The Jets aren't probably going to bring him back. That makes him a free agent. He's only 29 years old. I think he would thrive more under Richard than he did originally in Dallas. Here's my question, though. Does either side want a reunion? And if you bring in Morris Claiborne, he's got to be cheap because he's going to be a backup to Byron Jones and Awuzie. But maybe then you feel just a little bit more comfortable moving one of the other cornerbacks in a trade. Just throwing that out there as a potential option. Let me know what you guys think. Do you ever want to see Morris Claiborne back on the Dallas Cowboys? I say yes to all players of this type. It just depends on the actual price tag involved. So let's recap the top 10 free agents Dallas could still sign. Obviously, a bunch of other names out there beyond Eric Berry and Malik McDowell and Ndamukong Suh and Timmy Jernigan, Nick Perry, also Deion Jordan. On offense, Jay Ajayi, TJ Yeldon, Ty Montgomery, and just throwing it out there, Morris Claiborne as a possibility. Just throwing that out there as a possibility. But if you can pick one more free agent to sign, who is it? Just pick anyone that you want. It doesn't have to be a guy we mentioned. I know some want C.J. Anderson. I think he falls into he wants a bigger role than he'd get in Dallas type category there. You can throw a bunch of different edge guys. I'm not a big fan of Ezekiel Elliott, but I think he fits as well. But let me know in the comments section. Now, before we sign off, folks, go download the My TV Choice app if you're done with commercials and you want to watch Chat Sports seamlessly during March Madness games. Go download the app, mytvchoice.com. Hey Cowboys fans, thanks for watching the Cowboys Report. If you haven't already, click right here to subscribe to our channel for all the best Cowboys coverage on the internet. That's news, rumors, highlights, mailbags, film studies, and a whole lot more. And I'm making your lives a little bit easier as well with the next Cowboys Report video right here.